A Cleveland grand jury decided Monday to clear two white police officers of all charges in connection with the shooting death of 12-year-old Tamir Rice. Rice was shot and killed in November 2014, playing with a pellet gun outside. Officers said they thought the gun was real.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Here are some of the protests that we saw on the streets of Cleveland, expressing anger and frustration over the lack of an indictment. The decision comes as a discussion about policing in minority communities is playing out in cities across the country. Marc Morial is the president and CEO of the National Urban League. Marc, it's good to talk with you. Yeah. Look, it seems like we have a problem nationally that grand juries are losing the respect of their communities because in case after case, what seems clear to a large number of community members is not the way that the grand jury forms its decision.
Well, I would also add that you can't look at the grand jury without looking at the prosecutor who manages the grand jury. And I think in Cleveland, just like in Ferguson, just like in Staten Island, you had prosecutors who seemed to not really be interested in an indictment, who did not go to the grand jury and recommend an indictment. And contrast that to what Ken Thompson, the Brooklyn district attorney, did in the Akai Gurley case. So I think the conduct of elected prosecutors combined with grand juries is why we need, in many instances, special prosecutors who do not work.
Independent prosecutors.
Independent special prosecutors. Governor Cuomo of New York signed an executive order authorizing the same, and I think it would restore confidence in a process which obviously people do not have confidence in.
Well, clearly prosecutors typically rely on police as expert witnesses to go in when they're trying to get a conviction against criminals. Do you think that the prosecutors are just too closely tied with police?
Contessa, I can tell you from my years practicing law, my years as mayor, the relationship between a district attorney, a state's attorney, a prosecutor, and the local police has to be close. They work hand in hand, day in and day out. And I think even just the appearance of lack of impartiality suggests why independent and special prosecutors would be better than what we have today.
Cleveland's mayor seems to take a different tact than his district attorney does. And that is to say that he had come out and denounced the shooting of Tamir Rice when it happened. And since then, he has said, look, no matter how the legal case plays out, this was wrong, that a 12-year-old died was wrong. And he's talking about ways that he might be able to deal with this administratively. What options might he have?
Well, I think what's important in these cases is even if a police officer does not face criminal liability, that police officer can be disciplined. They can be suspended. They can be reprimanded. They can be terminated from the force. So the city has options relative to the career of the police officer still at its disposal.
The rookie police officer who shot Tamir Rice and the training officer who accompanied him right now are on desk duty, but they still work at the police department, even though they have no interaction, we're told, with the public. In the meantime, could there still be a federal case against these police officers?
There's no question, and I hope and encourage and urge the Department of Justice to do an independent investigation. This is a tragedy, a 12-year-old boy, someone's son brandishing, quote, a toy gun. And this police officer, like a cowboy in the Wild Wild West, rides up on him, and within seconds, he's lost his life. It's a tragedy. It's hurtful, especially for that mother, that father, and that family.
This happened in 2014 and made big news when it happened. The Washington Post reports 977 people shot and killed by police in 2015. How do you make Tamir Rice's life matter?
We have to make Tamir Rice's life matter by continuing the cause of bringing police and communities together and ensuring that there's accountability, Contessa, when police violate the civil rights of citizens. This is really what's at issue. What's at issue is in too many cases, there's simply no accountability. There's no discipline. That's one of the essential problems in Chicago. The disciplinary system is broken down. There's no criminal prosecution, and in those cases where there is a criminal prosecution, it's very difficult to get a conviction. So we've got to fix the relationship and the culture, but we've also got to fix the system of accountability in this country.
There has been a lot of attention paid to the organization of the Black Lives Matter movement. Many of those who are joining the movement or supporting those who are joining the movement are not Black. They come in all other different backgrounds and cultures, religions, and colors. How important are those other allies to justice and to reforming our national approach to how we deal with?
Contessa, the cause for justice, going back to the fight for abolition, the fight for civil rights in the 60s, the fight for LGBT rights, the fight for women's rights, has always been multicultural. Those who are passionate about justice, regardless of race, regardless of origin, can see in the case of Tamir Rice that there's been a miscarriage of justice, can see in the case of Eric Garner there's been a miscarriage of justice, can see in so many of these cases why this important new passion and movement for justice, Black Lives Matter, is just one element of it. Civil rights leaders have been on the front lines in this battle for years, and I think many understand that this passion, this new movement for justice is very real.
Marc Morial, thank you so much for your time.
Contessa.